Hi, uh, can somebody give me an indication that my audio is okay? Just on the chat. Okay, okay, okay. Welcome everybody. My name is Basil Joseph. I'm one of the counselors at Sheridan, and I'm really glad that you guys could join us for this event. We're going to be talking about emotional wellness. And as you know, for the last number of weeks, we've been doing different components of wellness. And today is about emotions. So let's launch into it. As a way of anchoring our conversation, I have a brief presentation. I'm going to put that up on the screen right now. So just bear with me. Okay. So I also need to be looking at the chat. Give me just a moment to figure out how to open up the chat on the side. Okay, I got that here. Okay, so feel free to put in any questions or comments that you might have, and I'll try to address them during the next half an hour or so that we have together. Okay, so once again, welcome to all of you. The theme for today, as we said just earlier, is emotional wellness, right? Uh, so let's launch into it. Okay, so what is emotional wellness? Well, emotional wellness can be a lot of things, but for the sake of today's conversation, try to narrow it down to a few key ingredients, right? If you might want to call that, for what will tell us that we are emotionally well, right? And these are the 5 indicators that we are going to be looking at, right? Then, after we look at indicators, we are going to be looking at what strategies can we use to stay emotionally well, to feel emotionally well, right? And then we are going to do 3 goals, personal goals. I'm going to invite you to sort of ponder, reflect, perhaps even jot down if you can in your own ways. Uh, 3 goals that you would like to set to have your emotional wellness attended to. And then we are going to do a 2-minute mindfulness meditation. And at the end, we are going to look at one coping strategy, one coping statement, rather, right? That each of you are going to go away with, right? You can pick up a coping statement from the conversation that we have in the next half an hour, or you might have a coping statement that is a favorite that you already have had in the past. So the structure is very simple. We are going to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, so that we can feel emotionally whole. Okay, so that's how I've structured it. So it's easy to remember. We're going to look at 5 indicators. We're going to look at 4, can't do my finger, 4 strategies. Then we're going to look at 3 personal goals we're going to set for ourselves. We will do 2 minutes of mindfulness, and we're going to do one coping statement that we are going to own as our own, as a way of motivating ourselves going forward. Okay, so right now, all of you are muted, but there is going to be one small section where, for about a few minutes, we are going to unmute you all, and that's going to be the 3 personal goals component. And when we reach there, I'm going to give a little pause for you to sort of ponder, write down, reflect, and create a few goals. And then I'm going to open the floor if any of you would like to share a goal that you have set. Okay, and this is a way of influencing each other, right? Otherwise, we would sort of just remain in our own small bubbles of what emotional wellness might mean. And hopefully, We might be able to learn and be motivated by goals that we hear each other setting. Okay, so let us move to the very first thing there, and that is the 5 indicators. Uh, okay, so what would the 5 indicators be, right? I've made it very simple, right? When we are emotionally well, we tend to feel good about ourselves. We tend to be happy. We tend to be kinder to others, right? We tend to be more patient. So the first indicator is that we are kind and we treat others really well, right? Now, the second indicator flows from that, and that is that we are not only kind to others, when we are emotionally well, we are kinder to ourselves, right? We show self compassion, right? Now, I don't know about you. I've struggled with this, and I know a lot of people struggle with this. We can be our own worst critics. We can be extremely hard on ourselves and be extremely self-critical when things don't go well, right? And so the second indicator is that we are able to be kind to ourselves, right? Now, number 3 is being aware of what our emotional state is, right? And that involves a little bit of self-reflection, asking ourselves, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling so low? Why am I feeling so anxious? Because awareness often helps us to notice how we are responding and are being impacted by what's happening around us, right? And so being aware of our emotions then allows us to ask ourselves, what do I need to take care of me? Right? What do I need? Do I need a little time out? Do I need to be good to myself? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to go and exercise? Right? Or do I need to emotionally connect, socially connect to someone that's important to me? Right? So being aware of our emotions. Uh, and then the next one is that we are resilient and we rebound from failure, right? Now, being resilient and rebounding from failure, I believe, is not something that only some people who appear to do extraordinary things possess, right? I believe that each one of us, every one of us, deep down, have resilience. And the very fact that we are alive, that we are pursuing, in my case, I'm pursuing a career, right? I have a family, I have 2 young children. Each of you are in different ways, pursuing different things in your life. Studies, you may be in a relationship, you may be very well connected with different individuals in your family. And so the fact that we are living, that we have gone through childhood, through schooling, and through multiple struggles, individually or as a family, we may have gone through struggles. The fact that we have gone through life makes us resilient, makes us someone who has rebounded from failure, right? And perhaps the problem sometimes is that we don't give ourselves credit for the fact that we have gone through stuff, right? And so I would invite you, sometime this coming week to spend a little time thinking about the kind of life that each of you have had, right? You may have grown up in families where there have been struggles, right? Parents may have struggled. You may have been in relationships where there were problems. You may have had failures in school. You may have difficulties in your current studies, right? But what we find is, as human beings, we somehow find a way to get through, right? And that's what we need to not forget. right? And it takes a little bit of really focusing and letting ourselves acknowledge the different struggles that we have coped with, right? There are a lot of people who struggle with depression, right? Or anxiety, mental health, or other health difficulties, right? But the fact that each of you are here today is testament that you have managed and you have successfully coped with all those situations, and you are here pursuing your studies at Sheridan, right? On a personal note, very recently, I had a very difficult situation. My mom, 3 weeks ago, back in India, she was old. She was 86, and she got quite ill and was in the hospital for like 2 weeks, and she passed away. Um, and not being able to go, given the current circumstances, no flights, COVID, mm, added a layer of pain that I had not expected. I'd always known that she's so far away, I'd be able to be with her, but just the circumstances made it even more difficult, right? But I believe that even though there are good days and bad days, and it's only 3 weeks away, I always trust in the fact that I've gone through a lot in life. I have witnessed my mom go through difficulties and seen her help us grow. And sort of gives me the confidence that even though this difficult event has occurred, that I'll be okay. I'll be able to take care of myself, and I will be able to come to peace and move forward, right? And again, that comes from this point about knowing that each of us, we don't have to do extraordinary things. Just living normal, regular lives, each of us are individually resilient in that we have the ability and we have rebound from failures, right? And so being aware of our emotions, being resilient, rebounding from a failure, right? And the very last, the fifth point there is finding meaning and purpose in life, right? And again, this can appear like a very big philosophical thing about, oh my God, where do I find meaning and purpose for my whole life, right? And this is where making it really simple and asking ourselves, what's the meaning and purpose that I can find right now in this moment in my life, right? So if I'm a student, then I'm trying to look at what's the purpose that I can find just doing these courses, right? Just doing this program. If I'm in a relationship, what's the meaning and purpose that I can find to make this relationship the best that it can be, right? If you're looking at our own personal growth, like, physically or emotionally or spiritually, we're looking at how can I be the best that I can just today, right? Even though we are looking at meaning and purpose in life, it's not about looking at the entire life in one go. It's about finding something meaningful in the here and now, right? And even if we were to struggle for meaning and purpose, because it's not uncommon for many students to be in a program and then midway sort of not know, am I in the right program? I'm not sure. I've got a lot of anxieties about the future, right? And that's okay. One of the things that happens is that all of us experience some level of this uncertainty when it comes to picking a career, establishing ourselves in a career, and and that's difficult. But being committed to searching, right? To searching and finding and trusting that that if I just stay committed to just doing one right thing at a time, I will eventually find my way, right? Me being a social worker, as a counselor, that is not the first thing that came to mind. I was doing different things in my 20s. I did some studies, and it was only at the age of 33 that I finally decided, you know what, this is what I want to do. right? And now, 20 plus years later, I am quite happy doing what I'm doing, right, as a counselor. And so, again, this is a note for those of us, especially students, who might find that, oh my God, I changed programs. I don't know, I've lost 2 years, I've lost 3 years, I'm starting off again, right? Is that if we stay committed to finding meaning in whatever we are doing and trying to do it well, eventually things will work out, right? And so those are the 5 indicators: being kind to ourselves, being kind to others, being aware of what we are emotionally going through at any given time, and then doing something about it, trusting that we are resilient, that we can rebound from failures or from whatever difficulties life throws at us, that we have it in us to cope, right? And then finally, being searchers to find meaning and purpose. Okay, so that's the 5. Now let's go to the 4, right? Okay, so there are lots of emotional strategies, right? And but I just decided to just pick just 4 so that it's easy to remember, right? And so, strategy. The first strategy is journaling, right? There are different ways of journaling. People journal their emotions, people journal dreams, people journal just feelings, what happened during the day, right? In a way, all of that helps us to sort of make meaning of what's happening in our mind, what's happening during the day, and we try to sort of put it in a nutshell and try looking at it. And sometimes that sort of helps us to synthesize. Sometimes that helps us to sort of unload. So almost like a brain dump, we are sort of dumping it onto a piece of paper, letting it be there rather than swirling around in the mind if it is anxious thoughts, right? Now, bullet journaling is something that's quite interesting. If you are not aware of it, I would encourage you to sort of take a look at it, right? Um, I have a few um, uh, hyperlinks. I have a few links in the presentation, and you will have access to my presentation later, so you will have access to those links and check it out. And it's a really neat way to do journaling. It's a little different kind of a way of doing journaling. So with that, I'm asked Claudia to screen the a video right now. And it's one of these 3 videos. It's actually the middle video that we will just take a snippet of, right? Just a 1 minute snippet of, and let us take a look at that. Okay, okay. So I'm going to come back to my screen here. Okay, so I know that it doesn't show you too much about journaling, but the main ideas are that, as you saw some of the snippets there, bullet journaling is a way of trying to organize trying to organize what's happening today, what happened in the last week, what's about to happen in the coming weeks or months, right? And it's a way of going through our days and going through our weeks in a very reflective way, right? And so this 1 minute is not enough to tell you much about it, and that's the reason I have 3 videos there. I'd invite you to take the time to check it out and see if this style of journaling is something that you find attractive, right? Um, and it creates a space in your journal to put down a whole lot of things to there's a section where you can do a brain dump rather than having all the thoughts and feelings inside you, sort of parking it there. There are areas where you create tasks and to-do lists. There are goals that you set, health goals or financial goals, right? And then you are able to look back and see whether you are reaching goals or not, right? And there are trackers for progress that you're making and what else needs to be done, right? So it's a neat way of journaling that a lot of folks in the recent years have been getting into, and I thought I would just introduce that. Okay. Now, the next one is self-compassion, right? Now, right at the beginning, one of the indicators that we talked about is about being kind and treating others well, right? And the very second thing that I mentioned was doing the same thing to ourselves, right? Because for emotional wellness, this has a huge implication for emotional wellness. When we are not being self-compassionate and when we are being extremely critical, there are physiological changes that occur in the body, right? That creates tremendous amount of a release of chemicals and creates a lot of stress, right? And so I would invite you to listen to a 2.5-3 minute clip by Kristen Neff. And she has been a researcher on self-compassion for the last many years. And this is part of a TED talk that she did. And let us listen to that, because what I want to share is one section where she actually talks about research about the neurological and physiological changes that occur when we are self-critical versus when we are self-compassionate, right? So if that could be screened now, please.
When we criticize ourselves, we are tapping into our body's threat defense system, the reptilian brain. Okay, this system evolved so that if there was a threat to our physical person, we would release adrenaline and cortisol and prepare for the fight or flight response. Now, the system evolved for threats to our actual bodily self, but in modern times, typically the threat is not to our actual selves, but to our self-concept. So when we think a thought about ourselves that we don't like, that's some imperfection, we feel threatened. And so we attack the problem, meaning we attack ourselves. And with self-criticism, it's a double whammy because we are both the attacker and the attacked. So self-criticism releases a lot of cortisol. If you are a constant self-critic, you will have constantly high levels of stress, and eventually the body, to protect itself, will shut itself down and become depressed in order to deal with all the stress. And as we know, depression is not exactly the best motivational mind state, all right? Luckily, we aren't just reptiles, we're also mammals. Okay? There's another way we can feel safe, and that is by tapping into the mammalian caregiving system. What's unique about mammals is they are born very immature, which means a system had to be evolved in which the infant would want to stay close next to the mother and stay safe, which means our bodies are programmed to respond to warmth, gentle touch, and soft vocalizations. So when we give ourselves compassion, the research shows we actually reduce our cortisol levels and release oxytocin and opiates, which are the feel-good hormones. And when we feel safe and comforted, we are in the optimal mind state to do our best. And it's actually very easy to see when we think about how to best motivate our children. So let's say there is a father whose son comes home from high school with a failing math grade. The father has two different ways to try to motivate his child. The first is with harsh criticism. The son comes in, shows the father the math grade, and the father says, "I'm ashamed of you. What a loser. You'll never amount to anything." Doesn't that make you cringe? And yet, isn't that often precisely the type of language we use with ourselves? And what's going to happen to that son? Will he try harder? Well, yes, he will for the short term, but eventually he's going to lose faith in himself. He's going to become depressed, and he will become afraid of failure and probably give up math because the consequences of failing again are just too dire. But what if the father takes a compassionate approach? The son shows him the failing math grade, and the father says, "Ooh, ouch. Wow, you must be hurting. I'm sorry. Hey, give me a hug. I still love you. It happens to everyone. But I know you want to get your math grades up because you want to go to college." Here's what compassion says. What can I do to help? How can I support you? And the more encouraging, loving, compassionate the father is, the better place emotionally the son will be in to do his best. And luckily, research.
Okay. Let me bring this back up. Yep. Okay. And that's such a simple message, but I think it's also such a profound message that changing how our body and our brain functions when we are being critical versus when we are showing compassion, right? When we are being self-critical, when we are showing self-compassion, right? Um, and it's something that in these days, with research, they are able to actually show that these changes, in fact, do happen, right? And so that's the second strategy. It's an extremely difficult, perhaps years long strategy to master, and it has to begin somewhere. And so it's going to begin with each of us, even taking a moment uh, during the day, at the end of the day, perhaps asking ourselves, was I being kind to myself? Was I too self-critical? Especially moments where we negatively evaluate ourselves against other people, right? And that's exactly where a lot of self-criticism occurs, right? Uh, I'm not as good as someone else. I'm not as good looking as somebody else. I'm not as strong as somebody else. I'm not as bright as somebody else, right? And therein lies the problem, that if our emotional wellness is based on being really on top of the list for everything, all of us cannot be up there, right? And if you were to listen to Kristen's whole TED talk, you will see that towards the beginning, she talks about a couple ingredients of self compassion. And one of them is that we are human, right? That we are embracing the fact that we are human. And even the meaning of to be human means that we are flawed, right? That we are not perfect. That's the meaning of being human, right? And what self compassion does is it's acknowledging the fact that, you know what, I don't have to be perfect. I'm okay just the way that I am. This is me, right? And therefore, I'm not critical of how my body is. how my voice is, how my abilities are, whether it is in a career field or in academics or in games, right? But that doesn't mean we are sort of just giving up and being mediocre. No, we still try to be the best that we can without the comparison with others, right? We're trying to be the best that we can, but when we fall a little short of what we wanted to achieve or what we wanted to be, we just looking at it and saying, well, I've done the best that I can, right? Rather than I just can't believe failure, I'm hopeless, I'm good for nothing, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges to emotional wellness. When we are constantly self-critical, like Kristen says, we end up marinating in those stress juices of cortisol, right? Because we are constantly in that fight flight kind of a zone where we are fighting ourselves essentially. But the more compassion that we show towards others, but also more compassion, kindness that we show to ourselves, we end up creating those feel good hormones that, with research, they have shown that self compassion, research shows that your optimal emotional wellness scale actually goes up. People feel happier, people feel more motivated, people feel less depressed, struggle less with anxiety, and so on. Right. So self compassion as a strategy number two. So the first strategy is journaling as a way of being reflective, right? Taking stock, being reflective. What happened today? What's going to happen tomorrow? And sort of being mindful and planful, right? That's the journaling part. And self compassion is being kind to ourselves, right? So let's see what's the next one now. The next one is mindfulness, right? And mindfulness, not unlike the first two, it is about being fully present in the moment, right? It's living each moment, one moment at a time. Because so much of our stress, if you really think about it, you will notice that so much of our stressors are not about what's happening right now. It is about what happened yesterday. It is about what happened last week. How could he have done this? How could she have done this? Right? So the mind can tend to sort of dwell on failures, dwell on our own shortcomings, dwell on injustices that has happened to us, dwell on losses that have happened to us. Or a lot of the time, our mind is worrying about what has not yet happened, right? We might be worrying about the exam that is coming up, about a relationship, about whether I will get a job, right? It's not that those are not important, right? But what that does is, again, when the mind overly engages in the past with rumination or engages in worry about the future, our bodies do not know that the mind is just trying to do some mental gymnastics to protect ourselves. Because essentially that is what is happening, right? When we worry about the future, our mind is looking out for us. We're just trying to, the mind is sort of making sure that nothing bad happens. So we spend time worrying, 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 right? On the other hand, when we sort of relive painful events from the past and sort of go over and over them, both those tend to get our body into this fight flight zone, right? Just as when we are self critical, right? The same kind of dynamic happens where the body doesn't know that what I'm worried about is yet to happen or may not even happen. As far as the body is concerned, if it's in the mind, it is happening right now. Let me get ready for a fight, right? And so the body starts producing all the stress hormones, right? If there was a painful event, a failure that occurred a week ago, right? And you can see this. I can spend half an hour thinking about how horrible that situation was, and you can bet my body is going to feel that energy. I'm going to feel horrible just by thinking about stuff, right? By reliving memories, we can actually create even more pain, right? And mindfulness, this is where mindfulness comes. Mindfulness is about not forgetting that the past has happened. I'm using that as a way of asking myself, what can I learn from this? What wisdom can I learn so that in the future that doesn't happen again, right? That's what mindfulness is about. It's not about forgetting the past, but mindfulness is not reliving the pain over and over, because when the pain occurred, I experienced the pain. But every time after that, my mind just ruminates over it, I am reliving the pain. And that is unnecessary pain that we don't have to relive. Mindfulness, or the practice of mindfulness meditation, can help us stay grounded in the present while at the same time not forget the past. In the same way, mindfulness can help us stay grounded in the present while being aware of dangers in the future. Yeah, there is an exam coming. My relationship could be in trouble. I might not find a job, right? But mindfully, we can think about that, look at what is it that is in our control, what is not in our control, right? And then keep the focus on what is it that I can control. What worry does is it starts trying to control a lot of things that is not under control, and then the mind is constantly racing, right? And then that creates a whole amount of stress, and we marinate in those juices constantly, right? It's not uncommon for me to hear from students, I'm not able to sleep, right? I spend 3 hours just thinking and worrying about the exam that's coming up, right? What did the worry do? It did not increase any level of knowledge. All that it did, it has created a whole lot of this marinade of cortisol in the body. That's all it did, right? And what mindfulness does is it helps us to be aware of the future, focus on what is it that I can control, and keep doing that. So keeping us grounded, keeping us present, but in touch with the past, in touch with the future, with a sense of compassion, right? With a sense of confidence that, you know what, if something bad happens, worrying is not going to stop that, right? I am resilient. And this is where the earlier point I brought about each of us are resilient, right? So the next time you find yourself worrying about something bad that might occur, I wanted to think about this. Think about the fact that I might worry 3 hours a day for the next week. That's not going to do anything to the outcome. If something bad is to occur, it will occur, right? All that I can control is what is within my realm of influence. My role in the relationship I can control. Amount of time that I will carve out each day to complete the assignment I can control. Outcome, if something goes bad, I need to trust in the fact that I have gone through difficulties in life and I'm here. And if something bad happens, I will be able to face that. Life will move on beyond that, right? And that's what mindfulness can give us. It gives us a sense of confidence that, you know what, things will pass, right? Difficulties, yeah, when we are going through it, it's extremely difficult, but things will pass. We will move forward because we have faced life, we have faced challenges, we have gone through them. We will face this as well. And that allows us to stop worrying and be more mindfully planning about dangers or problems, staying rooted in the present. So that's the whole thing about mindfulness. So the mindfulness is just not doing 10 minutes of meditation in a cross-legged position. It's more of an attitude of being present, being mindful of where I came from, being mindful of where I am going, but knowing that all that I can control is today, this moment. All I can control is me and my choices. I can't control my partner, I can't control events, but I will continue doing the best that I can in what I can do. Right? So that's number, what is that? Is that number three? I think that was number three, right? And then this is the fourth strategy. So we looked at strategy number one as journaling, being self-reflective. Strategy number two as being compassionate or self-compassion. Strategy number three, what we just looked at, is being mindful. And strategy number four is nurturing creativity, right? Because all of us, it's not just the artists, all of us, every human being, if you have any doubt, look at a baby. Babies and children, they are extremely creative, right? Somehow, as we grow up, our um, our sense of self, as it starts developing, our self-critical part of us might sometimes question and put down the fact that we are all creative individuals, right? And so pursuing interests and hobbies is a way of tapping into that ability that a human brain has to experience creativity, to try out things that is not part of a normal day-to-day and weekly kind of a life, right? Because life can be difficult, right? And then if we have a few interests and hobbies that we actively develop, right, they tend to create these feel-good chemicals in our brain, because when you're doing that, when you're engaged in whatever it is that is your special interest, your passion, your hobby, it's a way of bringing up your emotional wellness scale, right? I'll give you an example. I mentioned that recently I lost my mother 3 weeks ago. So the first week was extremely difficult, right? Just not being able to be there. But then week two, we had this Zoom meeting where I was surprised. We were like 50 families from around the globe, because my family, my mom was one of 12 children, so it's a huge family. And 50 families were able to come together and do a memorial in her honor. And that was something that was like, that was a creative thing that one of the family members did. But I remember there are a number of days where I turned to my hobbies, right? My interest in my hobbies. Two things. My interest in hobbies is um, right? Um, uh, Tomatoes. They are just like, ripe, ready for picking. For the first time this year, I tried some cantaloupe, and I've got 3 cantaloupes growing. 2 weeks ago, I was really going through a low time, and I knew that it was because of my mom's loss, and we were planning for this event. And our lilies were in full bloom, and I realized that lilies are my mom's favorite flowers. So I literally spent about 45 to 50 minutes with my camera. I've got a good camera here, taking pictures from different angles, taking pictures of different parts of the plant and the flower, right? And it sort of helped me connect with her in a way, but it also was sort of uplifting, right? And I'm going to encourage you, each of you, to think about what are hobbies that you have that you can nurture, right? It can be anything. Sky's the limit for that, right? And I would invite you to think about that, because that is the fourth strategy of of creating an emotional wellness. Okay. Um, so so I'm just doing a recap, right? So this is more or less a recap. I am sorry if anyone has sort of come in late. Um, I know some people would have come in late and I was not paying attention to that. And so, for those of you who may have come in a few minutes late, welcome again. Totally, I got so caught up in my own spiel here. Um, just seeing if there are any questions as well. I'm sorry about that. Um, Okay, so I don't see any. So this is just the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the 5 indicators. So we looked at the 5 indicators of emotional wellness: being kind to others, being kind to ourselves, being aware of what's happening in our body, what's happening emotionally, trusting that each of us are resilient, that we all have the capacity to rebound from failure. And finally, finding meaning, purpose, in small things that we are doing wherever we are in whatever life stage we are, right? So that's the first. And the next was, what was the next? And the next was the 4 strategies that we looked at: journaling, developing self compassion, practicing mindfulness, being in the moment, right? And nurturing creativity, nurturing interest and hobbies. So we did the 5, the 4. Now we are coming to the 3, and the 3 is the 3 goals. So this is where I'm going to invite each of you just to allow 2 minutes to ponder, right? And I'm going to be quiet. um, I'm going to invite you either write down or sort of text it into your own phone or ponder 3 goals that you would like to set for yourself to increase your emotional wellness. Right? Go ahead, everybody. The goals can be big, the goals can be small, can be just a goal for the rest of the day, can be a goal for this coming week. It can be a goal for this new semester that's coming up, right, in September. It can be a goal of how you're emotionally going to keep yourself well to be the best you can be during the semester, be successful, right? And don't worry if you're able to get all 3 goals, because this is an ongoing process. So you can spend the rest of today, right, allowing that to sort of percolate in the mind and come up with goals. But as a start, get started. Even if you have 1 goal, that's good enough. But spend the rest of the day to sort of allow and mull over to create 2 more goals, right? And at this point, I'm going to invite you. I've asked the host to unmute you all, because what also happens is that rather than us being in our own bubble of what goals, sometimes it can be very encouraging to hear each other, right? And we may hear goals that others have set that really speak to us, but we never thought about it. So I'm going to open the floor now. If you're still sort of thinking and writing your goals, continue going ahead doing that. But for the next 2 minutes or so, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to invite you, any of you, the audio is on. Just ensure that you are clicking your audio, unmuting your audio before sharing. So feel free to put out at least one of the goals that you have set for yourself, or if you want to share more than one, that's fine. Any takers?
I will start. get
Sure.
the ball rolling if no one else
Oh,
will. So a goal I have set recently for myself is to so if the situation is going really well, if I'm, really enjoying where I'm at, just to kind of, trust that that has potential to go on like long term, and you don't need to be worried about like the potential of that ending or changing in the future. I guess it is kind of mindfulness, but it's also just like allowing happiness to be taking place.
thank you for sharing that, Erin. Anyone else? If you don't feel like sharing through audio, feel free to type it out in the chat. I'm able to see the chat as well.
I can share a few things that, so I've tried to practice gratitude and meditation. However, I think consistency is key in a lot of these practices. And it feels so good when you're doing it, but often sometimes when we sort of fall off of it, then we lose all that stuff that we've built up. So just being more consistent with my practices, and spending quality time with loved ones. I think we spend time with loved ones, but there's a difference between just spending time and then spending some of that quality time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Thanks.
See anyone else? And that is okay, perfectly okay. And I know that we have actually surprised that we have gone past close to 4 o'clock already. And so let us move to the next two things, right? And I'd encourage you continue doing your goals. And this is the 2 minutes of mindfulness meditation, right? And there are a lot of things that you can do with mindfulness meditation. The file that I will share with you will have the names of apps. There is an app called Calm, Mindful, Headspace, Insight Timer, right? These are all different meditation apps that you can also use. And so uh, I'm going to lead you in a very brief meditation. Okay. And I know we said pebble meditation, but I'm just going to do a very brief 1 minute kind of a meditation. Okay. So I would invite you to, if you're standing, try putting down your coffee if you're having coffee or snacks, and just try finding a quiet kind of a place to just sit or stand. That's okay. And I invite you to close your eyes if possible. Just notice the fact that you are breathing. As you breathe in, notice that you are breathing in. And as you breathe out, notice you're breathing out. You're breathing in and you're breathing out. And just noticing and being aware of just that simple thing, that simple experience of just being alive and breathing. Notice how your body is as you breathe in, as you breathe out. And if you notice any sense of tension or tightness in any part of your body, as you breathe in, tell yourself that it's okay, that you know how to take care of your body. Perhaps even imagining breathing in that fresh, new air into that part of the body that is feeling tense or tired. Noticing each breath coming in and going out like waves ebbing and flowing. Not trying to control the breath in any way, just noticing, allowing the body to do the breathing just the way it wants to do it. And I want you now to allow the mind to go over the last 1 hour that we spent. You listened to a number of things that I shared, and I want you to go over that and see if there is any one thing that you would like to continue holding on to in your awareness as you go through the rest of today. Just one thing. Could be one of the strategies, could be an awareness of one of the emotional indicators, could be something new that struck you as you were listening in. And with that, slowly becoming again aware of your breath as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And with the next 3 in breath and out breaths, to open your eyes and end the exercise. Okay. So, come to the very last item of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the one is each of you coming up with one coping statement, right? And for some reason, the coping statement is not showing up. And so the coping statement can be anything from, this situation is tough, but I am tougher, right? And that could be a coping statement, right? And so I want you to think about some word or a phrase that could be motivating for you. So in moments where emotionally things are very difficult, you would use that and tell that to yourself, right? So see if you can come up with something. I'm trying to get to the so the coping statement could be, this is tough, but so am I, right? I'm going to stop the other one and show this one for a change. This is tough, but so am I. That could be a coping statement. I may not be able to control the situation, but I'm in charge of how I respond, right? Or it could be, I haven't figured this out yet. It could be, this challenge is here to teach me something. Or it could be, all I need to do is take it one step at a time, breathe, and do the next right thing, right? So, so that's it for my reflections on emotional wellness. If you have any questions, you can bring that up at this time. Someone says, thank you for a great session. So thanks, everyone. I'm glad that you could join, and I hope that this was helpful to you, and wish you really well, and take care.